Supervisors have now amended the ordinance covering new wind energy projects in the county.
KTV's Connor Trent covered the meeting for us tonight. So Connor, what kind of changes did supervisors sign off on tonight?
Well, tonight was the third and final public hearing on the proposed amendments to the ordinance. The changes follow concerns about the existing ordinance and the future of wind energy in Woodbury County. Now, some county residents worried that the existing ordinance didn't put enough distance between new wind turbines and farm homes and cities in the county and properties. There was also a concern that the ordinance didn't make clear the process for companies to decommission wind turbines. Now, several Woodbury County residents spoke out tonight, and many of them favored the proposed changes to put more distance between residents and wind turbines and to establish a process to remove those turbines.
I'm absolutely in favor of alternative energy sources. I use several of them on my farm. I'm in favor of wind power. I have a windmill on my farm. I'm in favor of farm scale wind generation, but I am absolutely against these monstrosities.
The board unanimously passed the amendments tonight, among them an extension of the setback. The distance wind turbines must be from farm homes, towns, and properties to 3,280 feet or 5.45 times the height of the turbine. Now, that's almost 5 times the setback suggested by Mid-American Energy. Board members cited data received from wind turbines in Osceola County, Iowa, that threw debris at a rate of 4.75 the height of the turbine.
I think the argument being made here today is that these things can throw so far that you are now inflicting harm on neighbors who want no part of this project. And that is not property rights. If someone wants this on their property, all for it. I'm a farmer. I fight for property rights all the time. But the footprint of these things are so large that you are shedding the risk onto people who are not participating.
Again, the new setback is 1 kilometer or 3,280 feet from occupied residences, buildings, and other protected areas. If property owners have already agreed to have wind energy projects on their property and ground has already been broken, they can abide by the old ordinance, which includes a 2,500-foot setback. The amendments will take effect immediately.